number 6 in the world, the number 100 in the world, trying to attack me when we just say, here's what I've done the last 3 years. Here's the list, right? The world sees this, and the 6 to the 100 continue to attack me anyway, which alienates them and pushes everybody into the I Love Phil column.
The interview by PokerOrg.
I'm Craig Tapscott. We're here in Los Angeles. Welcome to The Interview. Today we have as our guest a living legend in the game of poker. He holds the record for most WSOP bracelets at 17. He's a best-selling author, successful entrepreneur, and the 1989 main event champ where he won heads up against Johnny Chan. And he's probably the most famous poker player in the world. It was to me growing up. When I really started playing about 25 years ago, Phil was the book I went to. So thanks for joining me today, Phil.
You got it, Craig.
I have something to get us going.
Craig plays Once in a Lifetime by the Talking Heads.
So that music was special to you, right? It was in the book. I read your positivity book, and I was actually really impressed with a lot of the concepts in there that I practice in my life. Can you share with me how that song is special in your life and what happened that day?
Yeah, that was a great day for me. And, I have 2 books. Did you end up reading my autobiography, Poker Brat, or did you end up reading Positivity?
A few years ago, and I read Playing Poker with the Pros like years and years ago.
Yeah, that was my New York Times bestseller. That song, it was just kind of, the song evokes memories of a day in my life that was very key. And, it was, I mean, we're talking about, I think, 1987.
Right.
And I was a poker player. I had $20,000 in the bank, roughly. And I think I was a little bit bored. I was a little restless. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. It wasn't quite time where I could go golfing. So there was snow on the ground. And I went to a poker game, and the game was $2, $4 limit. And when you have $20,000, that's so irrelevant, that game. You win $200 or $300 if things go well. How does that help anything? And so I went to the game, and I was just obviously restless, and just something was going on. And so I'm like, So I asked a few of the guys if they wanted to leave. And then 2 of my friends, Larry Warmke and Gary Miller, said, yeah, let's go. So we went to a bar a couple miles away. We go to this bar, and we're having a few drinks, but now it's like 3, 4 in the afternoon. It's early. And I don't know, I'm not a day drinker. And then we smoke pot, and I'm not really a pot person. But so whatever. So now we've smoked pot, we've had a few drinks, and we're playing pool for $20 a game. And it's obvious that I'm out of my depth. It's obvious that I can't win. And then again, kind of boring stakes. And so I'm playing, and I'm like, is this my life? Is this my life right now? What the fuck is this? You dropped out of college to be at a bar on like a Monday, right, at like 3 in the afternoon, smoking pot, playing $20 a game, drinking. And it's just like a light went off in my head. What the fuck, man? And so that song, Many Days Go By, Water Flowing Underground, Many Days Go By, is kind of like time is passing in your life. And you find yourself here. And I thought, wow, what a fucking loser I am right now. Probably, I don't know if loser, yeah, maybe, probably. I'm very critical of myself. And it was like kind of like a light went off, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. And so I called for a taxi, wasn't going to drive. And I go and I open this door, and it had been overcast all day. Boom! Like I'm just hit. The sun is directly that way. Right. And it's hitting the snow that's on the ground. It's melting it. And I'm just bombarded by light, this dingy bar where it's just completely dark, and I'm in a dark place also mentally. And then boom, just hit by this, like, and I just thought to myself, man, this is like, you talk about, a sign, or you
Right.
talk about, and so, and the snow's melting, and I left and I went back to my apartment, and I had a nice apartment, and I just started writing down, what are you going to do the rest of your life? I started writing and writing and writing. The first thing I wrote was long-term goals. One of those goals was to write a New York Times best-selling book. Very obscure goal for someone who never got as good as the best grade I ever got in English was a C.
Right.
And one of my friends had said, "Oh, I really like your writing. It's really creative." So one guy said he liked my writing one time, and I'm like, I'm going to write a New York Times bestseller. Put it on my long-term goal list. I'm going to win the main event. Top of the list was main event. I think number one. I don't remember the exact order, but win the main event, meet
Right.
and marry a wonderful woman. That might have been number one for me. Buy a nice house, a nice place to live, buy a car. I think that was write a New York Times best-selling book. And so I'm like, well, that's a and I think on that list I might have put become the best poker player in the world. And so, and then, all right, I'm on to the next thing. All right, well, what else do we got going on? I'm just writing furiously. Okay, let's write some short-term goals. Oh, let's do a poker pyramid. Okay. And this concept of pyramid entered my mind. And all right, here are the things you're doing. On the bottom, we'll put the bad things you need to get rid of. Compulsive gambler, I never really was, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a compulsive gambler, but I was right. I lost my entire bankroll over a series of 8 trips playing baccarat and craps.
Wow.
And so get rid of that. That was kind of easy to do. Alcohol, all right, never had a real issue with alcohol, but let's wean that in. Drugs, never had a drug issue in my life, so that's okay. Bad money management, let's get that right. And then kind of like, as I wrote, these are the things you need to do. You need to have great money management. You need to exercise. You need to study the game. And so wrote the poker pyramid, short-term goals, long-term goals, and I kept writing, and just decided, if I'm going to pursue this path, I might as well become the best poker player in the world. And so with kind of renewed vigor and a renewed attitude, it was kind of a day where the light just turned on for me.
So it's probably one of the biggest epiphanies in your life then, right?
Yes. I mean, I think maybe I've had 2 or 3 big epiphanies, but that was certainly one of them. And that was probably the biggest epiphany of my life. I did go on to check off everything on the goal. I met my wife, Catherine.
Right.
Check. When we're married, we've been together 35 years. She's a doctor. We have 2 wonderful kids. They both live a mile away, which is amazing. They both take my phone calls, which is amazing.
Yeah.
If I need to see the younger one, I can always bribe him with a Nobu dinner. Hey, would you like to go to Nobu tonight? He's a sushi lover, so yeah. So amazing family. Very lucky to find the woman of my dreams and convince her to marry me. And I don't know if I would have gotten her, if I didn't get her pregnant. I don't know if she would have. I mean, I was very raw. She met me after I won the main event. My ego is just fluctuating back and forth. I'm telling people that I see reality clearly, more clearly than 99.9% of the people. I see reality more clearly than 99% of the people. What the fuck does that mean? I think maybe she thought I was a little crazy. I think she thought that it was a little bit delusional. What do I mean by that?
Right.
Seeing reality clearly just means that I can watch. I think I can watch a football game and I can see all the obvious mistakes the coaches make. Well, a lot of people can do that. When it comes to poker strategy, I can see what's right and what's wrong. Well, a lot of people can do that, but I can do it at a world-class level. And even at age 56, I was getting better. I of the 8 or 9 games that we play at the World Series, I became world-class in pot limit Omaha tournaments, and then triple draw tournaments after the light turned on with a couple of those games. So I
Right.
feel world class in every game right now in tournaments, and and so that's is that seeing reality more clearly, and that concept of seeing reality more clearly
Right.
than most people has evolved to where I don't sound crazy when I say it in 2009, but I did sound crazy when I said it in 1989. And then what does that lead to? Hopefully, I advise. I've signed official advisor agreements with 23 companies. I was trying to wonder, I think, how many people on the planet have advised 23 companies, been an official advisor where they gave you 1, 2, or 3% of the company to help them.
Right.
And it looks like I'm going to sign deal number 24. And then some of those companies go big. I have one point in one company that is now arguably worth, $10 billion. That's $100 million for me. And so, I help him a ton.
Right.
I entered the nutcase milk, which is
Yeah, I saw
cashew
that.
milk, chocolate cashew milk. I'll have a sip of this.
So, but you married a woman that isn't she psychology? That's her background. It's interesting, right?
Psychiatry, doctor, MD.
Psychiatry. But so does she ever help your mental game in life and in poker?
Well, let me just finish the nutcase milk thing. So I
Yeah, for
came
sure.
on board
Sorry.
as an advisor for nutcase milk with Joelle Wynand. Um, and Daniel's at a final table right now at the studio as we speak. Her husband, he was number 3 at Shopify. And of all people in the world, we'd only hung out 10 times lifetime. She's like, I want you as my advisor. And I said, I have this vision. We're going to hire Ninja, the world's biggest streamer a few years ago,
Yeah.
and he's going to drink nutcase milk on stream. And she wasn't convinced. She wanted to hire Grimes, Elon Musk, who was with Elon Musk, great artist. And Ninja responded and loved it. And I thought, wow, this is my vision, right? So as an advisor, you can really help companies. And Joelle will give me credit for that. Thank you, Joelle. And now
Cool.
maybe Nutcase, which is cashew milk, maybe Nutcase turns into a $300 million brand, and I have points. And so that's just been fun. The advisor stuff has just been fun. I change the course of companies almost always, sometimes a little bit, sometimes a lot of it. And I've raised money. I put celebrities into deals. And so the deal flow just keeps coming as I help more founders. And that's been really fun for me, Craig, because I want to be home with my wife.
Yeah.
And I want to be home with my friends. My best friend is Chamath Palihapitiya. And
Yeah.
I want to be with my people. Harvard's released a study this week about how having long-term friendships is very healthy for you. Chamath and I have been great friends now for 14 years. And so these advisor deals keep me comfortably at home with something to do.
Right.
When I sign a deal, it's I put this on my Twitter. It's very simple. I'll give you 10 hours a year. There's a sheet of paper. Imagine this is a sheet of paper. I'll do these 10 things for you, help you raise money, non-VC money. And it's just been a lot of fun. It's been a real journey for me. And, Jeff Gross is in the poker world, and he's someone who I almost always send the deal to immediately. And he's been extremely helpful. We have a piece of 16 companies together now. And so this is a story that no one hears about Hellmuth is that, and I had a vision, kind of had an epiphany that, wow, you're going to become a billionaire when you're 76 years old.
Right.
Now, the timing is always uncertain with these things. I've had these epiphanies before. And the reason you have the epiphany is there's a lot of logic behind it. So maybe it happens when I'm 70. Maybe it happens when I'm 80. But it's kind of weird, and I'm not going to try to get there, but I'm having fun. I mean, imagine like these founders, like they're eating glass, man. I mean, like when you're a founder, it's like eating glass, staring into an abyss. And they can call me, and I can cheer them up, and they can share great news with me. And that's been a real fun part of my life that not a lot of people talk about.
Right. I saw you shared that on Twitter or X just recently, and our editor Dave Woods asked me to ask you about that, your entrepreneurial streak that you do, and we've talked about it before. When I saw you here in Brentwood, your investments and how you help companies, and I didn't know that. I knew you were an investor in a lot of companies, but that's a pretty amazing thing.
Well,
That
when you're a founder, you invest money, and then they give you points, and then but
right,
first you have to show them you can see their strategic vision,
right,
which seeing the reality clearly, more clearly thing maybe gives me a little bit of a more insight into, okay, this company's starting. What is it looking? 1 year, 5 year, 8 year. And so, that's been fun for me because immediately these really smart entrepreneurs are like, wow, Phil's vibing with me, sees where I'm going. I wrote a book, 8 life tips.
Yep.
You referenced it earlier. You seem to love it. Tony Robbins tells people to buy my book,
Yep.
Positivity, in his advanced seminars. I'm just so I feel like I'm just a poker player, but maybe I've seen a few things, and I know that I've inspired hundreds of millions of people by playing poker at the level that I play at. Just like I'm inspired to watch the best golfer in the world hit a shot that only he can hit. I'm inspired when I see Draymond Green, my friend, playing defense like nobody else can play, or
Right.
Steph Curry hitting these crazy shots. And so when people see other people performing kind of at the edge of what human beings can do, it's inspiring. And
For sure.
so they're not really sure what I do. They just know that I seem to know what the other opponent has. And then they're like, oh, that's kind of cool to watch. And so I thought, wow, if I can inspire people, then why not the 8 life tips? And so it's been a real ride. And then the founders found out, oh my God, Tony Robbins really does, tell people to buy Phil's book. So
Yep.
here's another great cheerleader for me. The book is Positivity. You are always in the right place at the right time. You are always in the right place at the right time. And that's an important message for the people watching this to
For
hear
sure.
and to understand.
When you say seeing reality clearly, because I have a huge background in meditation and metaphysics and yoga and all that self transformation work, and it's always been an amazing thing in my life. Is it something sort of like you apply in poker? Is it, and you say see, define what you mean. You're talking about like it's a feeling you have, you see it, but you also, it's an inner feeling, the way you feel like he's got a full house, I have to fold here. Is it a combination of both when you're saying seeing reality? Can you define that a little bit
It's very
more?
interesting. I was just talking about this last night on the phone with Huck Seed, who I hadn't talked to in years, called me at 5 in the morning because I was watching the tennis match and he knew. Um, and so to me, the seeing reality is very simple. There's some very obvious things in poker, right? Like playing way too many hands will kill you, and yet 20% of the population does not have the vision to understand they're playing too many hands. So they're just gone. They have no chance. And now there's 80% left. Of that 80%, you can teach them this lesson, this lesson, this lesson. And a lot of people are incapable of learning or seeing it. And so you can immediately see that there's a lot of people that just can't really see reality clearly. You can tell somebody this is the obvious play. When you're an NFL coach, you have to do this. And the math supports it. And all the really, really smart people see it.
Mhm.
And you'll yet have 50% of the population argue with you that it was a bad call. And so that's kind of an example to go to football. In business, you can tell a founder that you can't spend 100,000 a month. You're going to crash the company, but some will crash the company anyway. You can tell a founder your ego's too big, rein it in, but then some can't rein in the ego. And so there's all these things that are all these things in life: poker strategy, sports strategy, business strategy, and so maybe the seeing reality clearly thing, maybe that's more about seeing strategy. This is a more in-depth talk I've had about this uh, than in a while. And so there's levels of it. And I'm sorry for the people out there. I know, I guess I sound really cocky. I see reality more clearly than everybody else. I'm fucking Phil Hellmuth. I really hate to come across that way. And I always come across cocky somehow. And so I can't, like, I talk about who I'm hanging out with. Oh, he's dropping names. I talk about, um, uh, the seeing reality concept. And then it just comes across
No, I don't
as
think
I'm too
so at all.
cocky.
I
So
don't think so at all. I mean, you're seeing it's. I see energy sometimes. Maybe it's more feel. You feel something that this is happening in my life or at poker. I mean, obviously, I don't play as much poker as you or the other guys, but I feel something or see something energy wise. It's not like I see an aura or anything, but I just feel something. Go, I shouldn't go in that room. I shouldn't go in that building. You heard those stories of people didn't go to work that day on 9/11. They said, I didn't feel like going in that day. Something inside you, our true intuition, and I think our connection to all that is God, whatever you want to call it, if you stay more aware of it and do the work to fine tune that kind of awareness, seems to be what you're talking about a little bit. And when people are clouded by something, whether it be ego, judgment, belief system, software that we've been loaded crap into our systems, they make bad decisions, right? Like entrepreneurs or poker players. Is that sort of what you mean?
Every human being has a log right in front of their eyes. Every human being. And then can you get rid of that log? And some people are at a big disadvantage. Maybe they were abused when they were children. Although, in my experience, a lot of my friends that had issues with their parents when they were young ended up becoming billionaires.
Right.
That's a separate concept of dealing with really rough parents. Sometimes that puts a chip on your shoulder that allows you to do great things. Sometimes it puts a chip on your shoulder that makes you want to drink too much or do drugs. I didn't mean to segue specifically into that.
No, I understand.
Bring me back in, Craig.
No. But that takes me to, I have a lot to
Oh,
ask
sorry,
you.
the log in the eye. Yeah, let me continue
Yeah.
that. So the idea is to diminish the log in front of your eye as much as possible and to make it smaller, 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 smaller. And I think that's what a human beings. That's what we try to do. And my wife, being a psychiatrist,
Right.
was ready to leave me in, I don't know, 2000, 2001, 2002, somewhere in that range, 2003. And she's ready to leave me. I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, you're the freaking, you're the freaking diamond in the rough. That's still a diamond in the rough. And I knew she was right. I knew that I hadn't changed and grown as much as I could have. And with her threatening to leave me, I was instantly just crying like an hour a day. Here is my wife, who I think is fabulous, and just karate champion and smart and perfect for me, and really high EQ and beautiful and all these things. And I'm just like, oh, we have great kids. I don't really want this to end. And that drove me into, and she said, she's really smart. She said, okay, we've been smart. We haven't cheated on each other or anything like that. So, yeah, I'm ready to leave you. Uh, but let's go see a therapist, because whether we make it or not, we can both understand our relationship better. And we started spending an hour and a half a week with a therapist. And at first she was, very upset. A lot of, 13 years of me not really being the man that I could be, not making changes, not being who she knew I could be. And then as time passed, this is therapy. When you're in couples therapy, that's where you can say to someone, you're horrible at this. And when you're in regular life and you're a normal person, which I consider myself to be, generally speaking, you say, fuck you, you're worse at that than me. You know what I mean? And that's the normal flow. When you're in therapy and they say you're horrible at that, you say, give me an example. Oh, you're right, I am horrible at that. And then there's levels to it. Oh, I did that for you. You did that for me. Yeah, I got that book, women are from,
Mars, Venus, or men are from Mars. Yeah.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yeah.
So the very things I would do to make her happy were the last things in the world she wanted me to do. All right, so we could correct that. Okay, let's stop doing things for her that's not what she wants. And then, okay, yeah, Phil. And with the pain and the crying and the stress of potentially losing, that's where you're ready to have a lot of growth. And so I grew a ton. And the primary relationship, as it changes, every other relationship changes too. I remember John Benetti in the car with me started crying. He's like, it's the first time you ever listened to me.
Wow.
And I thought immediately, oh my God. I didn't think of my own faults. I just thought, wow, that comes from the therapy with my wife. And it changes. Every relationship becomes better, deeper, more significant as you pay attention to those relationships and you do the right things. And so, yeah, it was a very painful year and a half, but we began to grow closer and closer and closer together. And at the end of it, when we stopped doing therapy, a year and a half later, I thought it was a mistake. I was kind of addicted to becoming better at understanding people, to becoming better at understanding myself, to becoming better at understanding relationships. And I missed that constant growth.
Hmm.
And then, there's a time then where I was ready to leave her in 2015. Was smart, didn't cheat on her, and said, "All right, now I need you to change a few things, honey." And we went into couples therapy, and she knew that I was right, and she made those changes. Very hard for her and very hard for me to make those changes. But as you make those changes, things become smoother and smoother in the primary relationship, smoother and smoother in every relationship. And then there's a process that I believe that exists as I become easier, more authentic. I understand exactly who I am in life. The people who are my fans who are watching me on television, or people that hated me in the past, are suddenly like, okay, I see that Phil is a really good guy. Number one, I see that he's struggling with his own ego. I can see that he has his own insecurities and he's talking about them. And so then all of a sudden, they become fans. So a lot of my haters have become my lovers. A lot of people that attacked me now defend me. And so this transition of, becoming an authentic human being, a really good, authentic person, someone who everyone knows family is first, someone who everyone knows, likes everybody in the poker world. And then you're playing with the same 200 people at the World Series,
Right.
and we're laughing every day because we play with each other. There's a lot of laughter in those World Series of poker mix games, a lot of laughter, a lot of fun is being had. And then I think, and then all of a sudden you find that, people are loving you instead of hating you. And then one last weird thing, Craig, was this year at the series. Literally had, it's not exaggeration,
Yeah.
just to be safe, 27 people on the first day of the World Series told me they loved me. Phil, I love you. What the fuck is that? I'm like, oh my God. I like, you get a little like, you don't know me. You know what I mean? What do you mean you love me?
Yeah.
And it just kept happening that day over and over and over. And I'm like, I can't handle it. Like, you don't want your ego blown up because I'm not going to perform well. Then I'm going to get stuck in my own mind thinking, oh, I'm great and all this bullshit. No, you don't want that. You want to instead be focused on the very next hand you play, and playing perfectly and making no mistakes. And that's what poker is. And then, and I just called my wife. I'm like, honey, this is just freaking weird. The next day, 17 people came up, and all through the World Series, people just, I love you, Phil. I love you, Phil. I love you. And so I took it for what I think it means, that they know that I'm just a really good person. They know that I've been under attack by a lot of the great players. And so I think there was a whole lot of players trying to take away my entire legacy, like pretending that I didn't win 23 out of 24 cash games I filmed, that I didn't win big, pretending that I wasn't up $2.5 million playing high rollers, pretending that I wasn't still crushing it. And they get kind of sick of that too, right? And so, yeah, that's worked out nicely for me. The inside critics, and really only the great players know who the great players are. So Sean Deeb will tell you that I'm one of the greatest. He'll say he might put himself above me, he might not, but he'll put me one or two. I'd be very surprised if it's number 3 in the world, and all around,
Right.
and all around poker. And Phil Ivey knows, all the great players know. But then you get to number 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. And these idiots, I call them idiots in a lovable way, but these idiots are like, oh, I don't know. I watched Phil move in with this hand and I thought it was mathematically wrong, not understanding that I wasn't playing my hand, I was playing my opponent's hand.
Right.
So the great ones know who the great ones are in this sport. And so, there's a level of comfort there. And in the last 3 years at the World Series, I've arguably the best record of anybody. You go back the last 15 years, I have the best record of anybody. You go back the last 20, 25, 30, and so I just keep having this best record. And still you have the idiots, number 6 in the world to number 100, who don't understand what I do and attack me. And I think that people don't think that's fair. And
Yeah.
then, you know, but they see me fighting and they see me being too egotistical and they see me admitting that, admitting that I'm insecure.
That was really, I think people empathize with you because of that. We all identify. I think we all are to some respect. And to see you share that, I had so many people. Oh, did you see Phil's video? Did you see what he opened up to? Then they're going to start to love you because they see that in themselves and also see your journey and inspiration. It sounds like that the work you did with your wife and then both of you back and forth brought you more present to your reality. Do you know what I'm saying? Because now your friend's going, wow, you're really listening to me instead of talking over me about something. It brought you like in the moment more, which obviously will translate into life and to your poker game, right? It sounds like you really did some really good work there. Personal work that takes you to a different place.
Yeah, it's the ADD, right? Like I have ADD badly, ADHD badly, whatever they want to call it, whatever 4 letters or 3 letters they put on it. And then I wasn't able to get good grades because I would go to the library my sophomore year in college
Yeah.
and I would read a dry economic textbook and I would read the first page and I'd read the second page and I'd like, wait a minute, what did I read? I absorbed zero, zero.
Mhm.
I'd go back, I'd read the first page, I'd get the first paragraph, second, third page. I absorbed zero. And then as I'm noticing it, and then my mind's wandering to this or that or the other thing. And, it's very hard. And, that's more of an immature ADD or an immature ADHD. What they don't tell you is that every Fortune 500 CEO has ADD or ADHD. They don't tell you that it turns into an advantage. Now I can read 10 articles in one day and absorb all of it. You know what I mean? And so that's where the ADDs kind of turned to my favor. But yeah, I
Well,
mean, I'm sure insecure. I couldn't get good grades. I basically, had bad grades in college. I mean, a 2.8 average, 2.78, but then I just started getting really bad grades. And yeah, and to my father, education was the most important thing in the world. With his PhD, his JD, his MBA, his father won the best heart surgeon award in the world in like 1973 or something, George Hellmuth. And he drilled it into him, who drilled it into me. And oh, my grades aren't good. I'm a failure and I'm insecure.
did poker make you be in the moment because you really had to think about your hand, their hand? Really was a microcosm for you, awakening, and you loved the game because of that. Why did you fall in love with poker in the first place?
Well, one of the things about ADD and ADHD is hyperfocus, right?
Oh, great.
And
Okay.
hyperfocus is an enormous advantage. And so people that have this illness, if they want to call it that, can hyperfocus. So I can be at the table and just like be watching everything. And then I think, when it comes to reading abilities, I don't know if 7% of the people have them. I really don't know. But I think it's a lot less than I thought. I used to think it was like 15%. But there's a whole generation that doesn't seem to understand what reading ability is. If I think you have nothing and I'm playing no limit hold'em, I can just make a big bet and you have to fold
Right.
over and over and over again. And so I do that. And then to the 7% of the people that understand reading ability, and they're like, oh, that's so beautiful. Look at him. Look at him unfurl this ability of reading people and moving in, and just the timing's so perfect. And that gives him 4 extra lives every tournament, or 10 extra lives, or 20 extra lives, because he's playing other folks' cards.
Mm.
And then there's again 40% of the people, maybe number 6 in the world to number 100 in the world, are like, oh, that can't be right. The math is not right there. Why did he move in with a deuce and a nine? That can't be right. Of course it's right. I knew the other guy couldn't call. but
Exactly.
it's like they're so trained and focused on their narrow-minded, whatever the latest theory is. I don't know what is it these days.
Well, take me
Solvers.
back. Take me back for a moment because we jumped over something I thought was important. Reading your book, you had the epiphany in 1987. 2 years later, well, the next year, which I didn't remember until I read it today, you finished 33rd in the main event and Johnny Chan knocked you out. And then 2 years after your epiphany, you won the main event. So that's a pretty big jump from having light, a wake up moment, and now you're the main event champion. You must think you're the best on the friggin' planet. And I mean, how was that? What was that feeling like in that journey in that 2 years? What kind of work did you do
Well,
on
in that
yourself
two
and the game?
years,
Yeah,
it's interesting because I look back at the Hennen Mob database. When I wrote my autobiography, that was how I gained a lot of like, oh, that's right, I won that tournament. Oh, that's right. And then you kind of remember those moments, and then you remember where you were in your life. So it's
right.
very helpful if anybody for me to write an autobiography that all my results are documented. What I started to realize was that I remembered all the great results I had in all the big tournaments, for 2 years. And going into that main event in 1989, I already thought I was the best player in the world. And I would tell everybody I'm the best no limit hold'em player in the world, bar Johnny Chan, because you'd be an idiot to say the 87 and 88 champion, you're better than him,
Right.
even though I knew I was. You couldn't say that out loud without really looking bad. But I had enough results to where they couldn't argue with you too. I was at that point. It was Jack Keller, T.J. Cloutier, Johnny Chan, and me. And Barry Johnson was doing some cool stuff still then too. And Eric Seidel was also on the rise.
And
And but I
Brunson,
just kind of knew.
yeah.
And then I just started, and so I started just winning a lot of stuff. So, there was an article in Esquire magazine that came out in April of 1989 where Johnny Chan said that I was going to win the main event soon. And I read that, and he was the number one player in the world. And I'm like, okay. He said something to the effect of, Phil just needs to rein it in a bit. And he was right. And then I did win that year. Um, but also, you know, I did think I was the best no limit hold'em tournament player in the world already then,
Mhm.
and I won that tournament. And then I just kept winning and winning and winning for the next few decades. I look back at the Hennen Mob, and I couldn't believe it. If you start in January of 2000, made 50 final tables in like 3 years. I had to recount it. I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
Maybe it was 4 years. What the really? And these are big tournaments, so I just kept getting there, getting there, getting there. And at that point, I was, just kind of crushing. And I don't think anybody. I think at that point, I was clearly the best no limit hold'em tournament player in the world by far. That was hard to argue during that phase of my life.
Well, tell me your best. I've got one, but you tell me first. Your best Johnny Chan story. You have a good story. You're a great storyteller.
Um, Johnny, I was honored the other day. He called a couple of years ago. He saw an interview I did on positivity, and he called me up and he said, "Phil, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you."
Wow.
This is Chan. He never gives a compliment. He throws around compliments. Like he'd never complimented me in 20 years, other than I read it in an article. Calls me and says, "Phil, I just want to comment. This is amazing what you're doing. I love the 8 life tips." And that was meaningful for me to come from him. He kind of disappeared. I mean, like he and I had some great battles, he and Doyle and I. And you
Yep.
were around, Craig, when we were battling for the bracelet lead.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think we won 6 bracelets in 1 year, the three of us.
It
And
was
there were only
amazing.
like 40 tournaments. He won 2, I won 2, Doyle won 2. The next year we won 5. I mean, like it was just incredible. It was just like us and then everybody else, and we just kept winning and winning. And what I really appreciated about Johnny is when I won the bracelet number, we were all tied on 10.
Mm.
And when I won number 11, Johnny and Doyle uh, honored me, and they came on stage with me and they congratulated me. And it was a very meaningful moment to
Yeah.
get praise from those two greats. Um, and so that was really nice. And then Johnny disappeared. I didn't see much of him. He and I played a lot of high stakes poker together, a lot of mixed games. Man, he's always plays so perfectly. Always. I can't imagine how much money he has won One interesting story: we played in a tournament. We got heads up um, at the Rio, and we got heads up, and he said, and it was like 4 in the morning, and he said, we'll just split the prize pool. He had a few more chips than I did, so I was like, okay, because I wanted to come back fresh the next day. He said, I want the trophy, and I said, I want the official title. you know, and maybe I had the chip lead, maybe he did. I don't remember. We got like, or maybe we split it according to chips. Maybe I got 53,000, he got 42,000. And I do remember running into him downstairs, and he was betting the whole 42,000 on the roulette. I think he lost, but he's just always great. Every time I play with him, and he just kind of stopped playing tournaments. And I know he's been playing all over the world, but he's just a fabulous player.
No, when I first started, it was the year before Jamie Gold won the World Series, and I was there covering the event for Card Player, and then writing for Fox Sports, and now lucky to work with PokerOrg also. But I saw you guys at the bicycle, and I was in awe meeting my heroes. I have all the main event guys have signed a jersey for me. I've been doing it for 18 years now. So I walked up to Doyle. I was so nervous, and I handed him the jersey. He's sitting at the bike, and Johnny Chance next to him. And I said, "Hey, Doyle, would you mind signing this for me?" He said, "No, sure, no problem." And then I handed it to Johnny, and he didn't want to do it. Right? No, because he's very. I don't know. That's okay. I don't want to do it. Doyle looks at him, and goes, "Sign the fucking jersey, Johnny." And I said, thank you so much, Mr. Chan. So Doyle got me the jersey signed. Amarillo Slim that time I was there. So it's a pretty cool thing for me to save those things. So it made me think, beyond the main event bracelet, what's your most like heartfelt favorite bracelet you won since then? Like one that really was special for you.
I mean, you have to, winning the main event in Europe was just a special moment.
Oh, true.
They had asked me to do the commentary. I think it was 2012. They had asked me to do the commentary, and I said, "Listen, just something inside me knew. Like that's a weird thing. You'd probably relate to that." And I don't know what I don't want. No is a bad word, but I just wasn't going to give any energy to that. And I said, "Listen, if I'm eliminated, then I will do the commentary." But every time they said, "You're going to do the commentary," I said, "If I'm eliminated, then I'll do the commentary." Never once did I say, "I'm going to do the commentary." Because words are so powerful, and people don't understand the power of your own words. And so, but I'm very in tune with that. And so, all the emails and all the texts about me doing the commentary, and never once said I'm going to do it without including if I'm eliminated, then I'll do it. That was a weird one too, because the second place finisher from Ukraine, what's his name?
Who was heads up in that with you? I don't remember for that one.
I just really enjoyed our time together. I'm bumming out that I can't remember his name so quickly here, but I was playing Chinese poker in the lobby. This was in the south of France. This was in right there on the water. We're in this beautiful hotel, and I lost like 20,000. Sergey Baranov. Yeah. Okay. And we're playing Chinese, and he's in the game, and I'd never seen him before. And, a very good player. I mean, it has a good mind for Chinese poker. All the games, really. And so I played, and I was just kind of like, I lost like 25,000. I was just aggravated, like, oh, fuck. Blah, 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 blah. I got a little aggravated. I forget who was in that game, but there were like 4 of us playing in the lobby. And I tried to walk away, and he kind of grabbed me, and I'm capable of walking away when somebody tries to grab me when I'm visibly upset, because people give you a break when you're visibly upset. You know what I mean? So, and I'm like, all right, whatever. He said, "You are going to win this main event, and I'm going to finish second."
Really?
And I looked him in the eyes, and I was like, what? No one had ever, I can't remember, maybe not many times in my life does someone say you're going to win an event. It happens, but a specific event, a main event, you're going to win the main event, and I'm going to finish second. He repeated it like 3 times. And I was kind of like, man, who is this guy? What the hell? I've never met him before. It's kind of a goofy thing, but it's a good prophecy, right?
Yeah.
So day one, I think I flopped a set, checked, someone else turned a set. So I got chips early, turned a lower set, got it all in. And I had a nice start. And he found me at the end of the day. And he was like top 5 chips. And he's like, you're going to win it. I'm going to finish second. You're going to win it. Told me like 3 or 4 more times. And I'm just like, this is just strange. I think I called my wife maybe or whatever, but I'm like, all right, whatever. Day 3, he finds me in the middle of the day when all of a sudden I have a lot of chips. He said, you're going to win it. I'm going to finish second. It's 500 players in this tournament, Craig.
Yeah.
What are the chances I win it as good as I am, right? And what are the chances that we're even both in the top 10? And the end of that day, now we were both like top 5 stacks. And he's like, you're going to win it. I'm going to finish second. And I was like, I believe that. Now I believe, and we came back and we just kept both advancing. He had a chip lead. I was second, Now we're at the final table. And he just kept saying it. And so I did interviews on ESPN talking about this, You're going to win it. I'm going to finish second. It was just so somehow it's absurd that we could both make the final 5. Right. But I'm playing the best poker of my life, and which is why I'm talking about the story. Now, Antonio's in the booth. And Antonio, they're not showing the whole cards. And he's like, and a hand comes up where it comes Queen 9-9, and I had jacks. Someone had raised, Sergey had re-raised, and I smooth called with jacks. Sergey makes a big bet. I call. Normally I'd fold. Turn is, I don't know, a 7. Mm-hmm. I check. He makes a huge bet. I call. It takes me a long time, and the river is a 10. So call it Queen 9-9. I think the off card was a 7, and the 10 on the river. I checked, and he bet like $2 million. And I spent 7 or 8 minutes studying, just kind of knowing I had the best hand. The turn card must have been a 4 because I just spent 7 or 8 minutes, and I'm just like, oh my God, like if I call this and I'm wrong, and I kept thinking you could fold and you could still win this. And my instincts just guided me to the call, and he wrapped the table and said, you win. And now I'm like, yes, jumped out because that was the hand that won the tournament for me. Yeah. It turned out, I didn't know this till later, but he had 7-8 suited, just went crazy, just went for it. And I made this incredible call, but Antonio's in the booth. I think one of them has ace queen and one of them has kings. One of them,
Antonio's good at what he does too. Well, that's great.
He's great at reading it, so he was just far off. And I literally played 50% of the hands at the final table. They would raise, I would call with deuce 9 offsuit. Why am I calling with deuce 9? Just because it seemed like I knew what they had every hand.
Right.
So, okay. And I remember once Sergey raised, I called with deuce 9, and it came, I don't know, deuce 5-7 or something. And then, check, and the turn was like, call it a 6. I had 10 deuce maybe. So now the board is 5, 6, 7 deuce, and he bet big, and I called. And the river was a jack, and he bet big, and I called very quickly with the deuce. And he had like 10-8. He had missed, picked up a open ender and missed. Right. And I just was playing every hand. And then a weird one, I'm finally dealt 2 10s when we're 3-handed or 4-handed. I think it was 3-handed. And the guy raises the button, and my instincts go on high alert. This is the easiest place in the world. I have all the chips. I'm supposed to maybe he had 3 million and I had 15 million. You have to put them all in there. You have 10s in the big blind. And I'm like, something's wrong. Maybe it was 9s I had. Something's wrong. And I ended up I guess he had 10s and flopped a set of 10s. So it had come queen 10. And so I lost just minimum on this hand. And I found out later that night, because he was finished third and he came out drinking with us, that he had flopped a set of 10s. And so I just seemed to know what everybody had. And so you asked me the tournament that I'm kind of the most proud of. It was that one where no one could understand how I was literally playing 50% And someone said Phil played 48% of the hands at the final table. We've never seen this before in history. And Antonio was just baffled. Phil with deuce nine, Phil with this, Phil with that, Phil with this, Phil with that. And probably the best performance of my life. And now all of a sudden it's Sergey and I heads up, and I'm like, he knows what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. But how could he even ever get to heads up? We made a small save. It was like 1.2 million for first.
Right.
And I said, well, the script is written, but I don't want to be an asshole.
Right.
So we made a save according to the chips. And I said, I think making this save is going to even help me even more win. You know what I mean? And I think it was 100,000 to 200,000, something like that, just to save on the side in case I finished second, he'd give me 200,000.
Right.
If I win first, I'd give him 100,000. So I won most of the money, and it just came down to me first and him second. And it's like kind of a, Craig, the way you were talking earlier, it's one of those, Twilight Zone moments, right? Dee, 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 dee.
Well, it's what we were talking. It's what I thought about when I read your book. That we do, at least I know we do. It's not something I believe. It's something I know, that we create our reality. So this information he was plugging into your software, he's going to be second, you're going to be first. You began to know it, not just believe it. You began to know it. And I've talked to players. I know I'm going to win this one. It's really what you put in your mind and think about, you create, and you talk about it in that book. And I really believe the things you focus on expand. So if you're going to focus on winning, that energy and that feeling will expand in your reality. If you focus on losing or I don't feel good about it, that will expand, correct? It sounds like these are the, excuse me, the guideposts, the blessings, the gratitude, things you talk about, the pyramid. Pyramid is really built in Egypt to bring energy up to the top. It's a symbol of fire, right? So you take it to the top of where you want to achieve with the things you need to do below in the base. So I really love the book in that way. There was very body, mind, and spirit. You had everything in there to give a person kind of like a guidepost of how to achieve anything in their life. And you've done it, and now you're inspiring others to do it. So thank you for that.
You can imagine how thrilled I was when I sent the book to Tony Robbins. First, I sent it to Sheryl Sandberg, who anybody in business knows who Sheryl is. Facebook CEO for like 13 years, made $4 billion. Just an absolute legend. When she lost her husband, first she wrote a book, Lean In, which talks about how men can help, or should be how the family duty should be more balanced.
Yeah.
And just a fantastic book that sold. It was maybe top 10 best-selling of all time. And where was I going with that? Oh, and Sheryl loved it. She read the book and she gave me this incredible review. This is a 70-minute read. She's like, "This is incredible." Those were her words on the back of the book. You're going to change a lot of lives. I'm really proud of you. And then when I showed Tony Robbins that, and Tony had only hung out a couple times. God knows why he took my phone calls. I just think we're like-minded in so many ways. And then I sent him the book and he gave me this glowing review. And then he didn't tell me himself, but somebody later told me that he's telling me to buy my book, #Positivity, which you can only buy at Amazon, is an advanced seminars. And when I was told that, I still remember where I was. I was doing an event for MGM Grand in Washington, D.C. at their National Harbor Casino. And this woman came up to me, some poker player said, "You have to wait 5 minutes for my girlfriend to come." And I was really tired. And I'm like, okay, I just have to be a nice guy. But I'm like, fuck. I signed 1,000 autographs. 1,000 pictures. I just want to go to bed. But I waited and it was worth it. She showed up and she said, "I just left Tony Robbins' seminar yesterday and he told us to buy your book."
Wow.
And that's just a significant moment for me in my life where you're like, wow. And, because I think those 8 life tips are truth. I think they will help any person on the planet. I'm proud of that book. And I'm very happy that Tony feels the way he does. By the way, that I think that's your phone that's beeping, right?
No, my phone's off. It might be my email or something.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, that was 2018. You mentioned something about doing a sequel, like a part two. Have you worked on that?
Thought about it a lot. I mean, you have to understand, Craig, that I'm just going to say I'm very happy. I'm
Yeah,
like on the scale of 1 to 100. I'm probably the guy that's 100% happy or 99% happy. Great long term relationships. Doesn't mean I'm not insecure. Doesn't mean I don't wonder, oh, this friend did this to me. What does it mean? I'm upset. Or, I'm insecure. And I think that actually a lot of the great ones in each profession are insecure, but I also think everybody's insecure. We're
for
all
sure.
insecure. And so I think, where was I going?
Well, you're talking. I asked you about the sequel to the book.
Oh, so then the issue is I get too busy, right? So I'm perfectly happy. So can I do my own startup? That would be a fast way to make $1 billion, but I know I can't. I know it would take years off of my life. I can't work 80-hour weeks. I
Yeah,
can't do it. During the series, I'll put in a lot of time, but I'll take a lot of time off, and that's playing poker every day. And I'm with a social group. I'm with people that I've grown to love and the tournaments, and so there's a lot of happiness and joy. And then and so yeah, so I think starting a positivity movement, going and giving speeches, and I think I would as the word spread, these are 8 life tips. They're truth. 8 life That's truth, and truth always spreads, and truth always scales way up. So I know that I could go out there and start giving positivity speeches like Tony Robbins does.
for
I know
sure.
that I could go out there and I could start 3,000 people, 5,000 people, 20,000 people at each stop. I'd make a fortune on the book since I did it through Amazon, and I could help change a lot of people's lives. And so it's very tempting for me to do that. And I sometimes think that, that would be a very good thing for me to do for the human race, is because I think I can help people. I think I can show a lot of people that they're in the right place at the right time every day. And yet I don't want to sacrifice my own, too much of my own personal happiness and goals. So I just keep hoping that the positivity book just catches on and just spreads on its own.
Right.
But I think that I can, and I've certainly mentioned that book over 50 different podcasts. It hasn't sold as many copies. I thought I'd sell 1 million copies. And so a sequel to that, maybe,
Maybe.
and then, you look at Tim, who's just killing it, selling. I think he's the 7. Everything's 7. I wanted everything to be 8. And one of the most famous inspirational authors in the world. I'm having trouble recalling his last name, but so there was a concept I wanted to use where I would go and ask 8 of the biggest people in the world what their goal list was, or how they thought about, like, it's a matter of, all right, I can get to 8 of the biggest people in the world. I can
Mhm.
get to Obama. I can get to all these people, and then have like, I can get to Elon Musk. I can get the Winklevoss brothers. And so to have like a list of Sheryl Sandberg, all these people I can get to. And so I thought that would be very interesting, where I can have each individual talk about their number 1 or 2 or 3 life tips, and then kind of, you know collate them, correlate them, and then see if there's any common denominators and themes. And so that was kind of an exciting potential book for me. But I feel like I have 8 million great ideas, and what do I want to do? I'm having fun. I'm having fun with startups.
Right.
I'm having fun being Phil Hellmuth, the poker player. And I don't want any of it to distract from my number one goal of becoming the greatest poker player of all time.
Well, it sounds like you could do that in a documentary. You talk about these people you've met. I did a workshop with Tony Robbins. I took my employees at the time of my nutrition company to see him at Universal City. He was amazing. You could be a guest on Tony's stage, probably when he does some of his workshops. But you talked about some of these people. You could do a documentary and interview all those people. I think that would be very powerful. Tell me about what you talked about with Elon Musk, where he says he doesn't pay attention to praise. You talked about that in your book, right?
I didn't talk about that in the book.
I
I
read
didn't.
it somewhere that you mentioned that advice you learned from Elon, that he didn't pay
I,
attention to praise.
I was with Elon in August in Italy, just when X launched. So the day X launched, so
Wow.
I didn't think he'd make it to be with us in Italy because I know how committed he is to Twitter, right? But I mean, the guy already works 18 hours a day. So when he was working on this trip too, but he was with us when X was launched. He showed it to me on his phone. He's like, look, this is just out. And this is fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I told Elon, I said, listen, I know because he's in my circle of friends. In fact, one of my best friends is probably his best friend. And so I'm pretty sure that's the case actually. And so I know that he bought Twitter to to try to save free speech. That was his goal. That was his intent to save free speech. And and so I remember that trip. I said, Elon, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you. To do this and sleep on the floor of Twitter offices, and I know why you did it. You did it to save free speech, and I'm so proud of you. And then he gave me a big hug. I didn't want to sound pretentious. I'm proud of you for this, but I know why he did it. And I get pissed off when the Republicans hated him for this, and the Democrats hated him for that, and the da 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 and da 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 and da da.
He can't win.
You need if you want free speech, you're going to piss off a lot of people, and we need a 20,000-pound gorilla to drag free speech into our lives. Despite everybody saying, oh, you're treating us unfairly. Oh, we hate you. Oh, we're going to regulate all your businesses. Oh, like the amount of attack that this man has faced. What's he trying to do? He's trying to save the human race, to put us on Mars and now the moon. What's he trying to do? He did electric cars. He's trying to save the environment. I mean, like, now he wants to save free speech. These are his fundamentals. These are his basics. And I get so mad, when I see on X people attack him. And I'm just like, really? But that's what it takes. It takes, I believe it takes a strong man to save free speech. And if you read books about the economy, some people are worried. The far left Democrats are worried about, I don't know, one man taking over the entire, what's the word for it? We had it in Germany, and then the far right is worried about too much socialism, which is really bad for the world. As we've discovered over and over again, but it takes a real strong man to be able to, to kind of be able to drag people to a perspective, which they hate. And you notice politically, I'm not committing to either side.
Right.
I walk in the middle. I'm very disappointed in the 5% Democrats and the 5% Republicans that are clearly crazy.
Yeah.
And almost everybody in the middle will tell you these groups are both crazy. And then Elon gets attacked by this group, and then he gets attacked by this group, and now he did this, and now he did that, and it's all a bunch of bullshit, And the Elon that I know from spending thousands of hours with his best friend and time with him just wants to change the world.
That's amazing. Speaking of friends, I really enjoy.
So to come back to the thing.
Which thing?
So I asked Elon. They were having this great conversation.
Well, the praise, yes.
And I said, "How do you deal with praise?" And he basically just tries to ignore it, which I think is very hard to do. So I asked him 3 times. He probably was annoyed by the 3rd or 4th time I asked him, because dealing with praise is very difficult. it's easy to have it blow up your ego, and so, but he genuinely does a really good job of not buying into the praise, and then therefore not being destroyed by the criticism. The people that ride the praise high are
Mhm.
the people that ride the criticism to the bottom. And it's a very, and so I learned a long time ago, when people come up to me and they say, "You're who I aspire to be and I love you," if I take that in, I'm going to go way too high. And then I'm going to play badly, and then I'm going to come way, and then people are going to start criticizing me because I said this or did this, or they don't think I'm good at poker. And then I'm going to listen to that and come way down. So, you know, he basically just said, he can be a spiritual guy too. And I think he's like, I just kind of, let it, let it, let it go.
Well, that was an interesting part of your book too that woke me up. That praise, when you got a lot of praise, it affected your game. You would think that you're pumped up, you're confident. Praise is different than confidence, obviously. That affected your game, and you know you won't play well if you really buy into all that praise and get into your head. That was like a light bulb for me too, to listen to you talk about that in positivity. But let's talk about your friends a bit because I got a laugh out of it. Having spent a few minutes with you here in Brentwood a couple years ago and getting to know you from the guy that's on TV and these blow ups and funny things that happen, you seem to have a great sense of humor. Your friends pick on you relentlessly and you laugh. It has to, does it hurt a little bit sometimes? But
Oh yeah.
because Chum Out, they just showed all these videos of you being the circus ringmaster and Poseidon, and they're teasing you. But we love you, Phil. But you can see really the true love they do have for you. And how do you take all that in? Do you really enjoy that part of it? And you're a little bit hurt sometimes when they pick needle you, but they love you.
You're referring to the All In podcast, which,
Yes, the recent one.
right. And so their cold opening, which everybody seems to watch their cold opening, they get 3 million views on this stuff. They have a top 10 podcast in the world, and their
Yeah.
cold opening was me.
Yep.
Was me dressed as, I don't know, Caesar, dressed as Poseidon, Neptune, whatever, dressed as and so they just made fun of me. Me coming in as Darth Vader, and the costume was a little tight, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, look at us, you can see his belly hanging out." And yeah, and so it's interesting because we have defined roles, and then I struggle with that, because they come at me hard, they make fun of me really hard, and for the first time in October, I realized that it's taking something away from me. When someone says something profound in the group, and I'm the one that catches it right away, and I go to that person, I say, "Wow," and everybody shuts up to listen, and I come back to myself for a second to say, "Oh, I can relate to that," because with the intent to throw it back to that person, so we all can learn a lot. That's my way of kind of, but I'm always stopped in that moment of coming back to myself first. And then they'll say 10 seconds to fill, 10 seconds to fill, 7 seconds to fill. And they'll just go on and on and on and on and on. And I can never get back to that. And so I noticed this dynamic in real play, and I talked through it. And then the guy who we were with said the most profound stuff after that. And I thought, these motherfuckers are cutting me off from the best moments that we can have as a group. We had someone who had dinner with us who started Tesla before Elon, or sorry, with Elon. And now he's working on batteries, like recycling batteries. And he's so fascinating, so interesting at dinner. But if the normal thing if I had let them stop me with the 10 seconds to fill, I talked over it. And then everybody sat there dumbfounded as he was talking about how he's saving the world, you know? And so that really affected me. It really caught me hard. And, I've made my friends, $1.5 billion, $2 billion. Doesn't the count? I've made them billions. I mean, no one can relate. People
Yeah.
listening to this are like, what is he talking about? Chamath will tell you that I got him the piece of the Golden State Warriors. He bought it for 40 million. It's worth 800 million right now. Um, And one of my friends, we SPAC'd one of my friend's companies, and he was up $1 billion at one point. I brought that company, I SPAC'd it. And so I've done these just some really kind of cool things that no one can even wrap their head around, right? And then one time I didn't feel I was getting enough credit. And so what happened was I attacked my friends, and I'm like, da 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 da. And you know what I mean? And I was really feeling hurt because I realized that dynamic cuts things off. I realized they weren't giving me enough credit, and my own insecurities kick in, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm not going to go to the game this week. I'll just fly to Vegas a day early. Canceled the game, flew to Vegas a day early. This was October. And then was just I couldn't play in another game until December, because even though we play 4 times in November, we play every week. I just got busy traveling. And so I basically couldn't participate in the game. And I realized how much that hurt me. And there's a study out from Harvard that came out in the last few days, the longest running study in history. It's 80 years old. And it talks about how long-term relationships, long-term friendships acutely impact your happiness. Mm-hmm. And I think it even talks about how men are worse at this. And so I called Chamath and I said, man, I'm really missing everybody, and I'm feeling more insecure than ever. And it was me who decided not to go to the game. Yeah. And I just kind of realized the importance of being in the room with those guys. And the poker players some are a little greedy, and they're like, well, of course you have to be in that game. You made $1 million in 1 year and 500,000 this year. But it's not about the money. I mean, if they thought that I was about the money, then I wouldn't even be invited to the game. Just a bunch of people I love that I travel all over the world with. And Chamath is my best friend. And I'm not afraid to call him. And I called him to shout at him the other day. God damn it, you didn't give me enough. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. He very calmly sat through the whole phone call. And are you feeling okay, Phil? But that was my process of kind of clearing the air. I'm mad about a few things, and it's obvious that he loves me and that I love him. Yeah. And so it's a fantastic to have a friend like that, and to have friends like this, and people you can count on, people you can depend on. But yes, the relationship is heavily weighted towards them making fun of me. And most times I bring that out of myself, and I also fight hard back. I call them idiots. I'm like, you guys don't see the fucking nose in front of your face. I see reality more clearly than you. You didn't hear this guy was doing that, or that guy. We have like the former director of the CIA at dinner. They're all asking the wrong questions. And I'm like, you fucking idiots. This is a fucking director of the CIA. You can ask him some stuff. You can't go too deep. And so, so they sit there listening to me talk to them. And so, so then I'll be like, you idiots don't know anything. And so I attack them and call them idiots, which they love, because each one of these guys has 10,000 employees and no one can ever point out their weaknesses. And so for us to be at that table together, to make fun of each other about the true things, but with love in our eyes, it's just a fantastic place to be. Same group of guys I've been playing poker with since 2010, once a week. And you talk about the social dynamic of poker. I mean, I love everybody now. It's kind of like, it's wonderful.
I was wondering, because they were needling you hard. I wondered how you took it and how your heart took it. And I can tell there's a lot of love between you guys. I've seen you guys play it live at the bike. I think you have your friend's home game a couple times there. But you did start something. I wrote this down here. At the main event with Jungle, you did start Nipplegate, did you not? Because now we have Charlie Carroll in Game of Gold. You started something there. I mean, what happened with all that? You got picked on. You got teased about that a little bit. That had to hurt.
That didn't bother me very much.
Didn't bother you at all?
Kind of like, you have a costume on and whatever, the thing slips over a little bit, they can see my whatever. Who cares? That didn't bother me. That didn't even bother me 1%. That actually.
Yeah, who cares about?
And Norman Chad, who has attacked me more than anybody in.
I was going to ask you. Yeah.
He and I have a great relationship now, but I had to put a lot of work into that because he was just so mean to me all the time. And he saw me. I kept showing up to charity tournaments with him. And I kept just being nice to him and giving him praise. But my dad once told me, he said, if I saw that guy pop him, I'm like, what the? My dad's never hit a flea in his life. What is he, because Norman got a little brutal, when he'd attack me on ESPN, nonetheless. But I also realized that I deserved that, and that's part of a shtick. And so, yeah, they're going to come at me, whatever. It's not a big thing. And I think Norman and I really enjoy being together. We like doing stuff together. Like when we film stuff together, we're both looking at each other and laughing and smiling and having fun, and I think, sure, once or twice, maybe he went a little bit too far, or didn't give the proper video to what actually happened. When I talk about burning the place down, I introduce that by saying, I'm going to say something I shouldn't say. And then somebody says, don't say it then. And I say, if I don't win this tournament, I'm going to burn the place down. They don't show any of that. All they show is when I say it later and I say, I'm going to burn this place down if I don't win. And they release that clip.
Yeah.
Doug Polk's guy who lived in his basement for 2 years. I don't even know the guy's name. That's the guy who, I told Doug Polk, he's fake news. This guy is fake news. And I said, Doug, you could be so huge if you were just honest. I'm not calling him a liar, but he stretches the truth. They put out these things, it's dishonest in some ways. But Doug is fantastic. He's like, he delivers the news well. People want to hear what he has to say, but then he turns a bunch of us off, and we're like, oh, we can't take him for real. We can't take him for serious because he's exaggerated this, he's exaggerated that. He's always exaggerating. So now when he says something, you take it with a grain of sand, where he could just be so huge if he just spoke truth. Truth is so powerful.
Very powerful.
So, this is not, Doug deserves some of this, what I'm giving him right now. He deserves this, and he knows he deserves this. But yeah, so this whole idea of, taking half of somebody's statement and putting that in the press, fake news, right? You didn't hear right what I said right before that or right after that. You just pulled this clip out of me saying I'm going to burn the place down if I lose. And, and so Norman has occasionally been a little bit unfair there. But Doug's really been unfair. Like he's crossed the line several times. And I think there's hope for Doug. I think there's hope for him. I think that I still think if he just cleans it up, but I think he still wants, in his mind, if I'm Doug Polk's mind, if I release a clip saying Phil Hellmuth's going to burn the place down, I'll get 1 million views on it, and I'm going to be a hero, and look, I get all this extra money. No, release it the right way. You still get 1 million hits, and you keep everybody's respect.
Yeah. Doug's very talented, so I agree with you. And you did, I was going to ask you about that. You went right to the Rio thing, and you did it to a player I've worked with a few times, one of the nicest guys, Anthony Zeno. Weren't you reacting to something Anthony said? Or played, the way he played in that particular hand? I was going to ask you, he's one of the nicest guys in poker and very successful.
Zeno is a great guy.
Nice guy.
Basically, everybody loves him. Super talented poker player. Yep. I really have a lot of respect for him and really like him a lot. And if you saw Zeno and I before I said that, and you saw right after it, you'd realize that we're very friendly, super friendly. We really like each other a lot. But that's not a good story, right? The story is Phil said he's going to burn the place down. Let's take it out of context, throw it out there. And I was signing I had a deal with the company, and the CEO called me and he said, "Man, keep that up." I thought he was going to fire me. He's like, "Keep that up," because I just got so much press. Yep. Ty Stewart he's like, "Keep that up, Phil. That's so great for poker," and it is great for poker. But I thought, wow, they're gonna fire me. No, they love it.
No, you brought it up a few times, the way some of the young guys, when I came along to start working in 2006, there were no solvers. There were some smart guys in the game that were figuring some things out, and 2+2 forum and Reddit. And as we've evolved, and they picked on you a lot, yet you continue to show them that you would win every year. Cash is right and left, more bracelets. How did that affect you a little bit? Because I think now they're like going, wait a minute, he's doing something a little bit different than we're doing. And what is he doing? So that was now we got solvers, yet I bet you probably never opened a solver, maybe. I don't know.
I've never opened a solver.
Yeah, for sure. What's it like? Let's talk about this. You have a great relationship. It seems to maybe a love and hate relationship with Daniel, and
That's funny. I was just going to go to Daniel.
yeah. Well, I want to ask you because obviously I love the heads up matches, and you guys sometimes he picks on you very harshly. Other times you guys seem to love each other a lot, and Daniel took his game to the next level by working with coaches and took it. And he struggled for a while. It's sort of like a golf swing. My background's golf. So when you change something in your swing, you don't play very well for a while, right? You play golf too. Then you come back, oh, that's the slot. Now I play better. So Daniel worked on his game and took it to a different level. Tell me about that relationship with him and watching him do those things to grow his game. Like,
Well, what I'm going to say about Daniel is fair. And he would say it's fair too. You know, he came to me in 08, 09, 010, and he said, Bro, you can't win playing like you're playing.
right.
I was thinking to myself, what are you talking about? Yeah, I'm not changing a fucking thing. I'm going to do what I'm going to notice whatever works that day. And I'm going to notice whatever. I'm never locked into a single strategy in my life. And he kept coming up to me and he didn't even cash for a couple of years. It seemed like to me, that's an exaggeration, but he just wasn't getting there for a long time. And he said, I have the best coaches in the world and you're not doing it right. And I just went on a tear. I started winning everything. And I just thought, Daniel is one of the most talented poker players on the planet.
Yep.
I mean, he's top 5 talented of all time. And you can make an argument for higher than top 5. And so he had this amazing way, these great reading abilities. And he went away from that in 08, 9, 10, whatever it was. For a long time, he went away from that. And then I just went on a sizzle. 2011, 12, 13. I was second player of the year twice in a row and just kept getting there, doing things my way. And then all of a sudden, Daniel comes to me and he's like, dude, you know, you have to learn this. You have to learn that. You have to learn. No, I don't. But so Daniel, deep inside of his heart, he loves me. Okay, he really does. And I think that he wants me to perform so well. He's really rooting for me. But then it's a little twisted, right? Like, because he also wants to be known as the number one, the greatest, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way to get to the greatest is to cut me down and stand on my shoulders, right? And so I just relentless attacks from him for decades about the way I play poker. I just keep winning. He came out and he said, "Oh, Phil, you're losing in the high rollers." I called him the next day. I said, "I'm up 1.7 million in high rollers." He looked, he said, "Yeah, that's right." But was there a retraction the next day? No. He went on to talk about how bad I was in high rollers. I'm, what the fuck? I mean, really? And so, and then I just think that he got confused, you know, and he started listening. He kept changing and listening, changing his golf swing. And I think that he, you know, was going down the wrong path many times, wrong path for a year, 2-3 years. Cost him a lot of titles because this is a guy that had he stuck to his true nature, he'd probably have 10 bracelets by now. I mean, he's just like, he's so talented. He's so good. And I think now we're seeing him get back to his nature right now. He's now, you know, and he texted me and he's like, "You're right. We need to rest more." I took 12 days off at the series. I always take 12 days off. And now all of a sudden he's like, "I'm going to do this resting thing." He started limping, which he made fun of me for 10 years doing. Then he says, "Limping is pimping." I'm like, what the fuck? That's my move. Limping is pimping because you did it and you won the 300K because of it. And so Daniel has so much talent that if he doesn't get in his own way, he's just going to keep winning. And I think now he might be out of his own way. And, you know, he'd probably argue with some of the points that I made, and that's fair and that's fine. But, you know, he basically said, "Phil, you play about as good as a grandmother." You know, the average grandmother. He came out in late 2020, 2021, talking about you play as good as the average grandmother. And I was just like, yeah, let's see about that. And then I went on a sizzle. At the World Series in first I beat him 3 in a row, right? And in that first match, that I haven't not had a person talk down to me as much in my entire life as Daniel. Just, "Oh, everything's on schedule. Oh, I'm going to beat you. Oh, it's going to happen faster." Like, just the cockiness was off the scale about how he's playing a perfect strategy and I'm not. and how he's going to bust me in X hands and all this. Like, it was ridiculous. He just kept attacking me, throwing tissues at me. Like, he was way, 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 way out of line. And so what did that do for me? You try to tell everybody in the poker world that I have no legacy and that I'm not great at poker. All the people that hated me or didn't like me, he pushed them all into my column. Here's the love, Phil, and respect column over here. He pushed the entire poker world right into my column because he tried to take away my legacy. He tried to take away my greatness. And he fucking pissed me off from a poker point of view, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you'll notice throughout him attacking me over 3 matches, I never said one negative word to him. I talked about what a great player he is because he's a great player, And I said, I'm not going to get drawn into this bullshit, On the other hand, Daniel never attacked me personally. He never attacked my wife, my family, just said I suck at poker. Now we come to the 21 series. And the first 3 weeks, I make five final tables, which had never done. And by the end of that series, I had 7 final tables, a record,
right?
And should have won 2 bracelets, only won 1. Maybe should have won 3 or 4 bracelets. And then I just crushed it so the last 3 years of the series, I think my results are the best of everybody. Maybe Sean Deeb is a little bit ahead of me. I don't know. Sean Deeb plays literally twice as many tournaments as me. If you take that into account, it's definitely me. And so Negreanu, by trying to take away my legacy, made everybody love me. And I'm acutely aware of that. So I don't kind of want to attack him back and be an asshole and send everybody back to him. Trying to keep attacking away. And so it really has worked out to a lot of love for me when people won't give credit where credit is due. Number 6 in the world and number 100 in the world try to attack me when we just say, here's what I've done the last 3 years. Here's the fucking list, right? The world sees this, and the 6 to the 100 continue to attack me anyway, which alienates them and pushes everybody into the I love Phil column. So it's a very intricate, delicate thing when people criticize you. It turns out to be very good for me in the long run.
Well, you see where Daniel's talking about, I'm only going to play when I feel like playing that day, and it's working for him. You've talked about that a little bit. Now he's feeling more in the zone instead of feeling like I have to play. So he must be taking in some of that energy that you've taught him or showed him, and he seems like a different Daniel the last few months.
Listen, Daniel, deep in his heart, he loves me. I mean, here's a guy that's criticized me more than anybody, but I know he loves me. And so we see each other, we laugh. He invited me to a hockey game. I would have gone with him. It would have been fun. He and I had drinks at the High Limit Lounge the other day when I happened to be in Vegas and see him. And I have nothing but respect for him. And so I think the Daniel and Phil love is kind of like in full bloom right now. I did an entrance down in Bahamas, and the players number 6 through 100 attacked it because I was too loud for 10 minutes.
No, I read that. Yeah.
Really? Number 6 to 100 because of Daniel and I and the way we act and the way we are. You could argue they're all making 10% more money because of us. Or Daniel would say they're making 60% more money because of us. So these fucking idiots, number 6 to 100 in the world, are trying to bite the hands that feed them. And Daniel understood it, and I understood it, and we just kind of had a good time with it. It's like, really? You idiots want to attack the things that end up making you money? You know what I mean? Because we were a little bit too loud with music for 10 minutes. And you talk to Ty Stewart, and he's like, fuck them. I want them to whine. You think we're going to change a thing? Fuck no. Them whining about your entrances is good. It makes them look really bad. And it makes the World Series look really good. And so it's just kind of, I don't know. You can tell I have a little bit of anger towards 6 to 100 because they don't understand.
No, I get it.
And Ike Hatton, he's one of the best in the world right now.
He is one of the
best. I give him a lot of credit. A lot of credit. That's a guy I have respect for. And, but he'll attack me, he's just, for whatever reason, whatever it is, like he needs more attention or something. I don't really fully understand Ike yet. But he used to hate me for whatever reason. Now he realizes I'm great for poker. Now I realize I'm a great guy. So where does that leave his animosity towards me? I don't know. And I've been nothing but nice to him. But I have a lot of respect for him. But he has to take that white mask off. It's he's using it as to give himself an advantage because people don't read him as well when he has his face covered. He's like the guy that wears the whole jacket over his head. Ike is doing this, and it's bad form. When there's 6 people left in a tournament, you don't really have any real concerns for COVID, and so that's just a tactic and a strategy. And he's going to have to change that. That's not good for poker because we want to see his face, and you're taking away one of the elements that we can use to beat him. And I didn't want to take my mask off because I used it successfully against Antonio Esfandiari. And Maury Escandani's basically, hey, you have to do it.
But isn't any different than wearing sunglasses and the old Phil Hellmuth hoodie around your thing? Is it that much different? Having the sunglasses.
I mean, sunglasses is another thing. I don't wear them anymore. I thought maybe they gave me an advantage. I don't think they do anymore. I really don't. So I stopped wearing them. But there are people that are just tell boxes, and maybe Ike Hatton is a tell box. I don't know because I haven't seen him without his mask on, But these guys are tell boxes and they can't win, And so when you start having to cover your face to win, then maybe you're not a great player.
Well, Ike was doing pretty well.
Ike Hatton had the best results in no limit hold'em tournaments of anyone the last year and a half.
True.
But he's had a mask on. Does that taint how good he is? Does he care? Is he just after money? But I mean, that has to go.
He's done pretty well before the mask, but I understand your point. For sure. So tell me, you brought up Sean Deeb. He's on my list to talk to you about. I love Sean. He has a great sense of humor. And at one time, like 20 years ago, I did a challenge for my birthday. I was like 24% body fat, and I got down to 8% in a year. He was over 40%. He's already down 20% with $1 million bet with Bill Perkins. And I know he can do it. It's a mental thing down now to get down to 17 from where he's at. It's like golf. You can get to 80 pretty fast, but to get to 72, 71 is really hard. So what do you think about Sean doing this challenge, and what do you have encouraging words for him about this?
Sean is he's a very interesting guy. Like he once told me, he said, we were talking about all-time great bracelets, and and he said, I'm not gonna. He was basically hinting that he wasn't gonna live, a super long time, that he had to accomplish the bracelets to pass me at an earlier age. He was hinting about that a little bit, and I was like, whoa, wow, what is that? And and I think unfortunately there are some things that can happen to people that can hurt their longevity in life, right? And some of it we don't really have control over, and some we do. And this is going to make, if Sean Deeb can, it's changed his life, and I'm very happy for him. He's a competitor of mine, but I'm very happy for him. I love having him around. I mean, I think Sean, this is his chance to get onto the main stage in poker. I think that his results put him on the main stage, but he's so mean that no one's hired him. Like, he could have all these endorsement opportunities, except that he chooses to call people out for debts. Old school, we never say anything.
Yeah.
Somebody owes you 100,000, you never say a word out loud ever. Someone owes you 10,000, 5,000, you shut your mouth, right? Because we don't know that person's circumstances. And Sean decided to take it upon himself to call out people that are guilty. The problem is, when you start calling out all these guilty people, inevitably you're going to call out an innocent person. And I asked him once, I said, Sean, do you care if somebody's 70% guilty? He said, if it's 70% guilty, I'm going to fry him. And I just thought to myself, that's so diametrically opposed to the way I think. If someone is 99% guilty, I'm not going to call them out because there's a 1% chance. Because you think of that guy who died in prison who was innocent, and you think of people's lives have been ruined when they're innocent. And so I said 70%, that's a ridiculously low bar for frying somebody and convicting them, And Sean took this very negative route, and now he has a chance to change it all. And I told him this. I said, you want endorsements. No one wants to hire the guy that's it's spewing negativity about everybody. You know what I mean? And so I'm rooting for Sean. I like him a lot. I think that he is, um, I don't know. Maybe he and I are the two. Maybe he and I are the two greatest all-around poker tournament players in the world right now today. Uh, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, Phil Ivy's there, and um, there's John Hennigan had a nice run there. He hasn't done as well the last few years, but and there's some others up there. Ike Hatton's done it in No Limit Hold'em. But Sean, man, is fantastic, witty, fun. I'm always laughing when I'm with him, and Sean will, and so I hope Sean does change. I mean, he told me, and if you ask him this, he'll say that he's told me that there's one person in poker that I aspire to be the most like, Phil, and he's told me that 100 times. And so that's giving me a lot of respect because he likes the honesty. He likes the fact that I'm a family man, right? He likes the fact that I'm chasing records, and so there's some stuff there that and so I really like Sean, and I'm really rooting for him. To be honest, I hope he wins this bet. But either way, he changed his life for the better.
For sure.
And I like Sean a lot, and I think that he can come out of this. He just needs to get rid of a little negativity, and he's going to get those endorsements that he wants as well. And him getting endorsements is good for me. Yeah. People are like, "Are you jealous?" No, it's the opposite of jealous. I had to tell Johnny and Doyle back in the day, root for me. If Nike hires me, Reebok's going to hire you. And so Sean getting some endorsements is great for the whole poker world.
For sure. I think when you make such an amazing physical transformation, it affects everything, your body, mind, and spirit. I mean, he was funny. He said he never thought he'd be topless on Poker News on the article that came out a couple of days ago, but he looks amazing, and he will get there. So I think he's evaluating his whole life, and it will change the way his mind works. His spirit, his energy is going to be so much higher, and he's going to have a hell of a great World Series.
Probably. It's weird when it comes to that stuff. Working out has helped me generally, but not every year. One year I was in keto the whole World Series. After I busted the main event, I came out of keto. 6 days later, I won my first bracelet. I was eating candy every day. So it's hard to tell, but right. You would expect that when someone's leaner and meaner, they're going to be more focused for longer periods of time and play better.
A couple more things. So if the world ended tomorrow, would you be happy with what you've done and what you've accomplished in your game and your life? It sounds like you would be, with all the amazing things you've shared so far. If Phil stopped tomorrow,
the world ended tomorrow, I don't think I'd be very happy because there'd be no legacy. Yeah, I've created this legacy. Whether the legacy is surrounding, being the greatest poker player of all time, which if you ask Daniel, he'll say, "Well, you are here, but not here, and da 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 da." And but my legacy generally is to be the greatest poker player of all time, and I want to be someone that people think about 50 years from now. But also, my book Positivity has a chance to do something very cool. Norman Vincent Peale wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People. And so his bar's way up here. My Positivity book's way down here. But one can hope that his book was filled with truth and got to here. One can hope that people are still reading my book 100 years from now because it's filled with truth. Nor am I under the illusion that I'm anywhere close to him.
No, I get it.
Don't kill me for being cocky, folks.
No.
At least not for that one.
Not at all. You've shared a lot of wisdom in the book. I loved it. I was real excited about doing the interview with you. And then I hadn't read the book. And I was like, wow, he's right in tune with a lot of my practices. So tell us, what are your predictions for this year's World Series of Poker? And why the number 24? Editor Dave Wood said, why is he obsessed with 24? You're at 17. Why is 24 that number important to you?
Well, you and I talked about spiritual weird things.
Numerology?
Visions of the future. You used a word earlier that I liked about like kind of an awakening. What word did you use?
I'm not sure.
Epiphany.
I said it's epiphany. It's an awakening.
Thank you. Epiphany was the word you used. So you have epiphanies of this whatever, and we all can kind of relate to that. We've all read stories about that, and I don't know. I just think in 1993, I just kind of decided I was going to win 24 bracelets, but it also felt like that's exactly what was going to happen. You're going to win 24 bracelets, and so I believed it. Started believing it in 1993. And so, is it a goal? Yeah. It's a goal that I believe that I'll hit. Yes. When I heard Phil Ivey say that he thought he could win 30 bracelets, I said that's great. When I get to 24, I'll reevaluate because maybe I can get to 30. But 24 just seems like a number that I'm going to get to, and I've just felt that strongly. I believed it since 1993.
Well, you're doing it. What's someone? I got a couple more questions. I appreciate your time. What's something you've never told anyone about yourself?
I don't know. I mean, we were
Something.
talking about you. I went a little bit deep with you on the seeing reality
No, I
clearly.
love that. When you say a log, you're talking about something that's blocking your vision. Is that what you mean when you're saying a log? LOG, right?
It's interesting that I came up with that I came up with that concept. I expounded on that concept with you. I've never really talked about that before, but as we were talking, it became obvious to me that we all have a log in front of our eyes,
So as it got
and there
smaller, you
are
can see more. You're talking about feel more.
no. It's very simple. Like some people can't see the obvious truth in front of them.
Okay.
Narcissists, can't see truth, right? Or maybe they can see some element of truth. They can't see the whole truth,
Mhm.
right? We have people that unfortunately, have some psychiatric illnesses, and unfortunately for them, the log seems to be a little bit bigger, right? And but I wouldn't focus on that. That might be more something that happens in their brain.
Mhm.
But the smaller that log is, the more clearly you see reality, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And so I think that's an interesting concept. And I've kind of latched onto that. I like that. I'm going to use that in the future.
No, I like that. If poker didn't exist, what would Phil Hellmuth be doing right now? What do you think he would have been attracted to in your life?
I mean, if you ask me this question in 95, 2000, 2005, 2010, 2020, the answer would change every time.
I see.
And, thought of myself maybe a little bit as a promoter.
For sure.
Um, these days, I'm a company advisor. That's what I do. And so, I mean, listen, I'm a poker player first, but outside of that, I'm a company advisor. And so, if there were no poker, then yeah, it's a skill, involving a deep network. So why does a founder come to me? They come to me because I can bring them non VC money, and that's very valuable for the founder. Then I can introduce them to my network, to famous people, when the time is right, and then I can introduce them to the best VCs in the world. So raising money, I kind of have that covered. Introducing to potential people that could help the business, I've done a lot of that as well. And then developing strategies for how to sell products, like with Nutcase, I've definitely helped there. And so I could see myself having a thriving business of, being a founder. I mean, sorry, I could never be a founder. I know my weaknesses. A
Interesting.
founder means 60 hours a week.
Right.
And I work a lot less hours than everybody else works. But my mind is a lot more active during those hours, you know.
Right. It was a tough year last. You've talked about, my editor again reminded me, you've talked about playing into your mid 70s. Then you see how, we lost one of our greatest players with Doyle. You guys had a great relationship. Do you see yourself playing as long as he did? I mean, he seemed to love the
Of
game.
course.
He's such an
He
amazing
was
man.
89. He was almost 90 when he died.
Yeah.
And boy, I know he was playing in the high stakes games and winning money in his 80s. And, playing in Bobby's room, I think, and probably Daniel or somebody will say, oh, Phil can't. I mean, with the knowledge I have for the mixed games, I think I can go into Bobby's room and play 1,000, 2,000, 2,000, 4,000 and make money. First, I feel like that's a no-brainer that would happen. Whereas my critics will say, "Well, Phil can't do this. Phil can't do that." Da, 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 da. Oh yeah, we recognize he's one of the best all-around poker tournament players in the world with a strategy, but that doesn't translate to cash games. I once won 30 sessions in a row playing in the mixed games. The players know this, but you still, number 6 through 100 will say, oh, well, he can't do this, he can't do that. I think I do very well in that game, but I'm making a lot more money. I mean, I can't make $100 million in that game. I can't make $1 billion in that game, and I can do that from my home, make all this money.
Well, thanks for joining me for PokerOrg's The Interview and spending time with me today. It's such a pleasure. Our producer is Will Thomas. He's here with us. He did a great job, and thank you to PokerOrg for allowing us to do this interview. I'm glad you came on board, my friend. You're the first one.
Greg, did you keep me on this thing for an hour and 45 minutes?
I did. I got a couple more questions when we finish, but I want to close up. Thank you for joining me today.